Hello and welcome. You have found a quiet place and a little time, and that is enough. If it helps, let your eyes rest closed or let your gaze soften on something still in the room. Nothing here needs your hurry. Take a slow breath in, if that feels easy. Let the breath leave you without effort, like mist leaving a valley when the air warms by degrees. As you breathe out, let your shoulders soften. You do not have to hold them. Let the weight of the day ease away from your neck, down along your arms, until your hands rest as they are, unclenched, unneeded for a little while. Another breath, if you like. The space between one breath and the next does not ask anything of you. Tonight we travel only in imagination toward an idea older than maps. A realm spoken of in Irish story as near, not far, as folded into the world rather than placed beyond the stars. People called it the Otherworld, not because it was opposite to this life in cruelty, but because it ran beside ordinary days the way a river runs beside a field, visible sometimes only as a glint through trees. We are not rushing through a lesson. We are settling into a rhythm of listening, the way you are settling into rest now, breath by breath, shoulder by shoulder. If your mind begins to name tasks or replay conversations, you need not push those thoughts away. Notice them the way you might notice a moth near a lamp, then return your attention to the breath, to the slack in your shoulders, to the quiet weight of your body where it rests. Picture, if you wish, a hill in Ireland that looks ordinary from a distance. Grass, a curve of slope, a sky that might be grey or silver or blue. In story, such hills could be more than soil. They could be thresholds, the kind of place where the world felt thin, not frighteningly thin, but delicate, like skin over a wrist where pulse can be felt. The Irish imagination did not always divide the universe into sharp boxes. There was room for a parallel brightness. A country where age sat lightly, where music could be heard when you were still, where time did not behave like a clock on a wall. That country had many names across the centuries, and none of them need to be memorized tonight. You can think of it simply as the Otherworld, a hidden realm that stories approached with respect rather than fear. Take another slow breath, and with the exhale, imagine your shoulders dropping a fraction more, as if someone kind had placed warm hands there and said, without words, you may rest now. The place where your shoulder meets your arm is a small junction that often carries tension without announcement. You do not have to fix it. Breathe toward it, the way you might breathe warmth into cold hands and let the muscles answer in their own time. In the calm telling, the Otherworld was not a place you reached by suffering. It was not a test you had to pass. It was often described as beautiful. Apple trees that fruited, seas that shone, halls where hospitality ran deep. It could be reached through water, through mist, through a mound that looked like any other mound, until the light changed. You are not here to prove your courage. You are here to drift through a landscape of ideas, slowly without needing to arrive anywhere sharp or certain. Imagine the air cool against your cheek in your mind, the way evening can feel like a veil lowered gently. Imagine a path that does not insist on speed, that widens when you need it to widen, that narrows when your mind prefers a smaller world. Imagine that walking is optional. You can rest on the edge of imagination and watch the story pass like clouds, not like a storm. Listen, if you can, for the smaller sounds that make a story feel whole. The hush of grass when wind moves through it, the distant suggestion of water, the way silence in Ireland can feel full rather than empty. These are not interruptions, they are punctuation in a language spoken slowly. Image by image, season by season. If names rise, let them rise like birds, not like questions with sharp edges. The tua je da known in old tales were people of art and skill who belonged to story and to time. Mananan MacLear moved between realms like a traveller who knows the ferry better than the map. The She, the fairy hills, were sometimes spoken of as doorways, not as traps. You do not need to sort every genealogy. You can let the names be music without demanding lyrics. Think of the threshold as a small teacher. Step gently, it suggested. Not because you are weak, but because respect begins with noticing. And noticing is softer than grabbing. When you imagine the horizon, let it be near enough that your thoughts do not have to travel far. Let there be a line where sea meets sky, not as conflict, but as a seam. As if two fabrics had been stitched together with patience. Let there be a mist that does not hide danger so much as it hides hurry, the way fog hides the far end of a lane so you can walk only the part of the road that is yours. The night deepens by degrees too small to count one by one. You might not notice until the sky feels closer, softer, more like a blanket lowered than a door shut tight. That is the kind of darkness that helps sleep, not the kind that startles. You are allowed to trust it a little. Let your jaw unclench if it has held the day there. Let your tongue rest softly. Let your eyes, if they are closed, feel heavy as stones warmed by afternoon sun. No effort, no watching, only permission to drift. We are nearly at the kind of arrival that needs no gate. The Otherworld, in the gentlest stories, begins not with a trumpet, but with breath, with attention, with a willingness to believe that beauty can exist without being owned. You can be ready in the softest way, the way you are ready now, listening, resting, willing to follow a story that will not hurry you. Rest here a moment on the imagined threshold, wherever your mind has placed you. Feel the earth steady beneath you. Feel your breath steady within you. When you are ready, the journey will unfold. Not to excite you, but to accompany you. The way still air accompanies a candle flame, holding its shape without breaking it. You might notice, without forcing it, the space between your ribs widening slightly on the inhale, softening on the exhale. That rhythm is older than any story about hidden realms. You can borrow it, the way you might borrow a blanket. Fold it around you, feel its weight. Let it be enough without asking where the wool was spun. If worry taps at the edge of your mind, treat it like a bird at a window. Acknowledge it with kindness. Then let the glass remain between you and its hurry. This other world will still be here when you return your attention. It is not a test you can fail. It is whether you walk through in thought, coat optional, boots optional, judgment optional. And now, with your shoulders a little softer than they were when you began, we can let the mist widen, not with alarm, but with the patient light that finds every hill eventually, whether the sky is generous or grey. Light in these stories often arrives as colour before it arrives as strength. A silver that is not metal, a green that is not envy, a promise that the world is larger than the slice you can see from one standing place. In a landscape where the ordinary and the strange could share a border, the other world was sometimes described as an island, sometimes as a plain beneath the sea, sometimes as a place you could reach by entering a hill, as if the hill were a house with no door visible from the road. If you imagine an island, let it be calm, let waves meet sand without argument, let birds be birds, not omens, unless you want them to be gentle omens, the kind that suggest continuation rather than warning. Let the horizon be a line where the eye can rest, not a line where the mind must chase. Manannán in the old tales was a guardian of boundaries. a figure who understood that crossing water changes a person slowly, even when the body feels the same. You do not need to picture a face. You can picture a cloak that holds the shimmer of weather, a presence that knows tides the way a farmer knows soil. He is not here to test you. He is part of the story's way of saying that some journeys require patience. The she-mounds in the soft telling were not only hills, they were memory made visible. People walked past them with manners, not because they were terrified of every blade of grass, but because courtesy was a kind of intelligence. To speak well of the good folk was a way of living peaceably with mystery. To leave offerings sometimes was not superstition alone, it was a gesture of gratitude toward a world that refused to be fully explained. If you imagine a mound, let it be grassed and green. Let it be a small rise that sheep might ignore, that travelers might pass without noticing. Let the inside of it be spacious in your imagination, not in the way of a stadium, but in the way of a hall where sound behaves differently, where voices feel warm, where music is not performed for applause but exists because it cannot help existing. In the story world, time in the other world did not always match time in the fields. A night spent in music might be a century outside, or a century might feel like a night. The tales do not agree on one rule, and sleep does not need you to solve the arithmetic. You can let the idea of different time be a metaphor for attention. When you are fully in a moment, the clock becomes less important. When you rest, minutes can stretch and contract without asking your permission. If that thought unsettles you, return to breath. Inhale, and the ribs widen a little. Exhale, and the belly softens. The otherworld is not here to displace your body. Your body remains where it is, supported, held by chair or bed or floor, real in the simplest way. There is a place name that often appears in stories of joy, Magmel, a plain of delight. You do not need to spell it. You can think of it as a meadow where the grass is forgiving, where the light is long, where the heart can unclench without needing a reason. In such a place, conflict is not the center. The story does not require you to fight. It asks you to walk. Apple trees appear in many branches of Irish myth, and apples are not always about temptation. Sometimes they are about sweetness that returns, about fruit that speaks of seasons that do not end in bitterness. If you imagine an orchard, let the apples be heavy and calm. Let the branches be strong enough to hold a bird's weight without drama. Let the ground beneath be soft with fallen leaves, not with hidden traps. If you imagine a feast, let it be quiet. Let cups be filled without rushing. Let bread be broken in a way that suggests sharing rather than scarcity. Let strangers be welcomed at the table as if they were expected, not because the story is naive, but because hospitality was a virtue told in stories as a kind of light. The Tua Je Danon, when they are spoken of in later tradition, are sometimes woven into the idea of the she people, beings who belong to the other side of the threshold. You do not need to memorize battles or genealogies. You can understand them as a way of remembering that Ireland's old imagination was not small. It made room for skill, for art, for music that could make sorrow feel less sharp, for craftsmanship that honored metal and wood and word. If you imagine a harp, let it be played by someone who does not need to perform. Let the strings respond to fingers that move slowly, as if the melody were already in the room and the player were only discovering it. Let the sound travel through the hall and settle like dust motes in sun, visible only if you are not trying too hard to see. Water is a constant companion in Irish journeys to the other world. Lakes, rivers, and sea all appear as roads. If you imagine a boat, let it be steady. Let the oars move without strain. Let the water hold the hull the way a hand holds a bowl, gently, without gripping. If you imagine swimming, let it be optional, and let the water be warm enough for comfort, because this is sleep, not ordeal. If you imagine mist, let it be a kind of kindness, a way of softening edges so the mind does not have to catalogue every detail. Mist can hide the far shore, and that can be restful. You are not required to see the whole journey tonight. You are allowed to travel only as far as your attention wants to go. Sometimes the other world was reached through a sudden shift in the air. A smell of flowers, a change in sound, a bird that sings at a time when birds are usually quiet. These moments are not alarms. They are invitations, soft as a hand on the doorpost, asking whether you would like to step through. If you are not a person who likes invitations, you can stay where you are in imagination and still watch the story drift past. You are not failing the tale by resting on the bank. Rivers do not scold the stone that stays. Think of the body as a small boat with its own tides. Breath rising and falling, heartbeat steady as a small drum in a quiet room. The otherworld stories often speak of beauty, but they also speak of return. People came back from the hidden realm, sometimes with a song, sometimes with a memory, sometimes with a sadness that sleep stories do not need to sharpen tonight. We can let the return be gentle. If you imagine a door, let it be a door that opens both ways. Let it be wood that feels familiar, iron that does not feel cold, a hinge that does not squeal. Let the threshold be wide enough for you to cross without turning sideways. Let the step down be shallow, as if the earth itself were polite. If you imagine animals in the other world, let them be themselves. A horse with a calm eye, a dog that walks without snapping, a deer that does not need to run because nothing is hunting tonight. Animals in stories are often truth tellers, but they do not need to speak in words. You can feel their presence as steadiness. If you imagine a forest in the other world, let the trees be tall without being threatening. Let roots find the earth without straining. Let light filter through leaves in a way that makes patterns on the ground, not warnings, only shapes that move when the wind moves. If you imagine a castle, let it be stone that has forgotten to be proud. Let it be a place where people gather, not a place where people are imprisoned. Let windows be wide enough for light. Let hearths be large enough for warmth. The night outside your story is still the night of your room. The two worlds can coexist. You do not have to choose one. You can breathe in the ordinary air and still imagine a realm where the sea shines like silver. If your mind wanders, let it wander. Wander is a kind of travel allowed in the other world. The tales do not always require a straight line. They sometimes loop like a song, returning to a chorus that feels like home. Take another breath and let your shoulders soften again, as if the weight of the day were a cloak you could slip off and hang on a peg. You do not need to carry the whole world into sleep. You can carry a small piece of it, a leaf, a line of music, a color you remember. If you imagine people in the other world, let them be courteous. Let their voices be low. Let laughter, if it comes, be gentle, not at anyone's expense. Let conflict be far away, like a hill you can see but do not have to climb. If you imagine love, let it be slow. Let it be the kind of affection that does not need to prove itself. Let it be companionship, not a chase. If you imagine music again, let it be layered. A harp, a voice, perhaps a drum so soft it feels like a heartbeat. Let the music not demand attention. Let it be a river you can float on. Eyes half closed, mind drifting. The story does not need to be complete. It needs only to be kind enough for tonight. The other world can be a place of rest, not only a place of wonder. Wonder can be quiet. Continue, if you wish, along the shore of imagination. The sea in Irish story is not always a barrier. It is a road, a mirror, a place where the sky repeats itself. If you imagine standing at the edge of water, let your feet feel the ground. Let the waves arrive at intervals that do not startle. Let foam be white without being sharp. If you imagine islands, let them be numerous or let them be one. Let birds cross between them without urgency. Let the air taste clean like salt and rain, and let that taste be a detail you can notice without analysing. If you imagine a boatman, let him be patient. Let him wait until you are ready. Let him ask you no riddles unless you enjoy riddles, and if you do not, let him simply nod and move the boat forward with a steady rhythm. If you imagine crossing under a wave, let it be a gentle myth, not a drowning. Let the water hold you like a blanket, not like a grip. Let the other side be light, not a flash, but a softening. If you imagine a city, let it be a city of calm streets. Let bells be distant. Let children be present without shouting. Let markets be slow with goods laid out in order, with colours that please the eye without demanding purchase. If you imagine gold in the other world, let it be gold without greed. Let it be a metal that remembers the sun, not a metal that asks for guarding. Let it be beautiful, then let it become unimportant. Because the story does not need wealth to hold you. If you imagine clothing, let it be cloth that feels soft against skin. Let colours be deep, not loud. Let embroidery be a detail you can notice if you want, or ignore if you prefer simplicity. If you imagine a queen or a king, let them be rulers without cruelty. Let them speak without shouting. Let them listen without needing to win. If you do not wish for royalty, let the hall be full of people who are equal in the way that sleep makes everyone equal. Tired, human, deserving of rest. If you imagine a garden, let it be a garden without weeds as enemies. Let everything growing have a place. Let bees move between flowers in a way that does not feel like business. Let honey, if you taste it, be sweet without urgency. If you imagine winter in the other world, let it be winter without biting. Let snow fall if you like snow, but let it fall softly. Let fires be warm. Let coats be warm. Let hands be held. If you imagine summer, let it be summer without exhaustion. Let sun be gentle. Let shade be generous. Let the air be easy to breathe. If you imagine spring, let it be spring without hurry. Let buds open slowly. Let streams rise without flooding. Let lambs be lambs, not metaphors. If you imagine autumn, let it be autumn without grief. Let leaves fall because leaves fall. Let harvest be enough. Let storage be enough. The seasons in the other world are sometimes told as if they do not turn, as if one perfect day could hold everything. You do not need to decide which version you believe. You can let the idea be a comfort that somewhere in story, lost does not have the final word. If you imagine a library, let the books be quiet, let pages turn without sound, let ink be dark and steady, let reading be optional, let the room smell of paper and old wood, a smell that suggests continuity without demanding study. If you imagine a workshop, let tools hang in order. Let a craftsman move slowly, testing an edge, not because violence is near, but because care is near. Let sparks fly if metal is struck, but let them fall like small stars, not like warnings. If you imagine a healer, let the healer be gentle. Let herbs be herbs. Let water be offered. Let the body be treated as a thing worth kindness, not as a problem to be solved harshly. If you imagine a child in the other world, let the child be safe. Let the child laugh at small things. Let the child be tired at the right time, and let sleep come easily. If you imagine an elder, let the elder be wise without being stern. Let the elder tell a story that does not need a moral shouted at the end. Let the story dissolve into the room like smoke from a good fire. If you imagine a dog at the elder's feet, let the dog sleep. Let the dog's breathing be a metronome you can borrow without effort. If you imagine stars, let them be stars without astrology, unless you love astrology. Let them be lights. Let them be distant. Let them be beautiful without asking you to name them. If you imagine the moon, let it be full or let it be thin. Let it reflect sunlight without heat. Let it be a lamp in the sky that does not need tending. If you imagine dawn in the other world, let it be dawn without alarm. Let the light rise slowly. Let birds wake in a way that feels like conversation, not like noise. If you imagine dusk, let it be dusk without fear. Let shadows lengthen without becoming enemies. Let lamps be lit in windows, not because darkness is bad, but because light is kind. If you imagine a road, let it be a road without bandits. Let travelers pass without suspicion. Let strangers be welcomed at inns. Let beds be clean. Let sleep be possible. If you imagine a bridge, let it be a bridge without trolls. Let it arch over water in a way that pleases the eye. Let planks be steady. Let the crossing be slow enough to feel safe. If you imagine a well, let it be a well deep enough to reflect sky. Let the water be cold and clear. Let the bucket be lowered without scraping. Let the sound be a small sound, a pleasant sound. If you imagine a boundary stone, let it be a stone that marks a line without demanding war. Let it be mossy. Let it be old. Let it be a fact that people walk past without needing to argue. If you imagine voices, let them be voices that speak in turn. Let listening be as important as speaking. Let silence between sentences be comfortable. If you imagine a song everyone knows, let it be a song that repeats without becoming boring, because repetition can be a kind of comfort. If you imagine dancing, let it be dancing without competition. Let feet move lightly. Let hands be held without squeezing. Let music carry the body without demanding perfection. If you imagine tears, let them be tears of relief, not of tragedy. Let them come and go. Let the face be dried with a cloth that smells like lavender or like soap, simple and clean. If you imagine reunion, let it be reunion without chaos. Let people recognize each other without shouting. Let embraces be long enough to matter. If you imagine departure, let it be departure without punishment. Let the road be open. Let the return be possible. Let the heart be heavier only because it is full, not because it is broken. If you imagine a vow, let it be a vow made quietly. Let it be kept without drama. Let it be a promise that does not require suffering to prove itself. If you imagine magic, let it be magic without spectacle. Let it be the kind of magic that makes a wound close, a meal taste better, a night feel safer. Let it be magic that serves life, not magic that consumes it. If you imagine a test, let it be a test you have already passed simply by being gentle with yourself. Let the story forgive you for not being a hero. If you imagine a gift, let it be a gift you can carry without it burning your hands. Let it be a small thing, a seed, a tune, a phrase that comes back to you when you need softness. If you imagine returning home from the other world, let home be the same and different in the way that sleep changes a room. The same walls, the same bed, but the light softer, the air kinder. If you imagine time passing, let it pass like clouds, not like a storm. Let years be a concept, not a whip. Let aging be a story you do not have to rehearse tonight. If you imagine the she again, let it be a hill that remembers you. Let it be a place you can walk past without needing to enter. Let the door remain open in imagination, not as a demand, but as an invitation you can always decline. If you imagine the Tua Jade Danon, let them be figures in a tapestry, not judges in a courtroom. Let them be beautiful without asking you to compare yourself. If you imagine Mananaun, let him tip his head in greeting. Let him continue on his path. Let him take the sea with him, the sound of it fading like a wave that has finished its work. If you imagine yourself, let yourself be a person who is allowed to rest. Let yourself be a person who does not have to earn the other world by effort. Let yourself be a person who can breathe slowly, whose shoulders can soften again and again each time the day tries to climb back into them. The story loosens now, the way a knot loosens when you stop pulling at it. You do not need to remember every image. You do not need to hold the map. The other world is allowed to become a feeling more than a place, a sense that beauty can exist without being captured, that time can stretch without punishing you, that a hill can be a hill and still be a doorway in the mind. Let your hips sink a little heavier into whatever supports you. Let your face muscles slacken, not in sadness, but in release. Let your next inhale arrive without your planning it, and your next exhale leave without your naming it. Sleep is not a performance, it is a return. Imagine your own breath as a small tide you tend without effort. Inhale, and the ribs widen a little. Exhale, and the belly softens. There is no task in this except permission. The journey you walked in imagination has completed itself without needing your perfection. The sea does not ask for your score. The mound does not ask for your credentials. The mist does not measure your pace. Let your shoulders widen and loosen as if someone kind had placed warm hands there again and said, without words, you may rest now. Let your jaw release. Let your tongue rest. Let your thoughts become like mist, visible only when light passes through, thinning when the light fades. If memories rise, let them rise like mist. Let them drift. Let them thin. If tomorrow lists itself in your mind, you can set the list down on an imaginary stone by the path. It will wait. Night is not a place for sharpening plans. The other world in your mind can grow smaller until it is only warmth, only the sound of breath, only the faintest sense of silver water, like a dream remembered as a color rather than a sentence. The land beyond can flatten into darkness without threat, a landscape generous enough to hold sleep the way earth holds seed, quietly, confidently, without needing to witness the moment roots decide to believe. You might feel as you drift the echo of the story's images, the hill, the hall, the harp, the tide. Let each echo become softer than the one before, until the only motion left is breathing. And even that can grow shallow enough to be forgotten, then remembered, then forgotten again. You have traveled through a realm without lifting a passport, without lifting more than attention, and that is enough work for tonight. Ireland's old stories were made of such small courage, noticing beauty, speaking kindly, respecting boundaries, resting when rest was possible, beginning again when light returned. If you need permission, let this be permission. To stop holding the story tightly. Let it slip. Let your mind wander into nonsense, into images that do not connect, into the gentle absurdity of dreams that owe nothing to myth. The other world you visited is not here to test you. It is here to leave you softer than it found you. Rest now in whatever darkness you have. Let the story dissolve into temperature and breath. Let the words become fewer until there are none. Only the gentle fact of you here, allowed to fall asleep. Good night. Rest well.